What's up, guys? This is Wes with Fantasy Smack Talk. Gonna bring you my top pivot picks for Week 8 in the NFL FanDuel Sunday Million. Before I get into that, just want to tell y'all about fanfootball.ninja, fanfootball.ninja. It's a relatively new service, but it's a cool tool. Allows you to take all your teams from every site, whether you play on ESPN, Yahoo, CBS, wherever. Put them into this one platform. Track all your roster moves in one place. Track all your league waiver wires in one place. And best of all, watch all your matchups on Sunday and Monday in one place. So fanfootball.ninja, check it out. All right, Week 8 is a slate I like a lot in the FanDuel Sunday Million. Some good chalk like Zach Ertz and Zach Ertz and AJ Green, but also a lot of good pivot plays like Hunter Henry. I'll get into that later. Top quarterback though, Hunter Henry's teammate, Philip Rivers. Rivers priced at $7,500 against the Patriots in Foxborough. Just about any measure, the Patriots are the league's worst pass defense. They're giving up the most passing yards, passing touchdowns, most importantly, the most FanDuel points allowed to opposing quarterbacks. So even with a pretty good performance against the Falcons on Sunday night, they're still in the bottom of the league. This will probably be a chalk play for Philip Rivers 3 or 4 or 5 years ago. But Rivers is a guy that just doesn't have that same shine that he did in his early 30s. Only exceeded 20 FanDuel points once all year, so don't see his ownership getting above 10%. But the Chargers are back in the playoff hunt, won 3 straight after starting the year 0-4. Rivers obviously the biggest reason why. He has an 8-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio in October, and he's averaging over 260 passing yards per game. So factor in some of those matchups that they've had over those last 3-4 games, and Rivers' numbers look pretty nice this year. So I really like him as a pivot option at $7,500 this week. All right, top running back pick, going to be Mark Ingram. Ingram's a guy that a lot of people expected to kind of have a resurgence of such after Adrian Peterson left for the Cardinals. That's happened. Mark Ingram in his last 2 games rushed for a combined 229 yards, scored 3 times in 2 games. More importantly, to me, is the fact that he's caught 9 of 10 targets from Drew Brees over that same time. So even with Alvin Kamara there, Adrian Peterson's gone. Mark Ingram's catching balls, and in a half-point PPR format like FanDuel, you really can't discredit that. So I think Chicago, the opponent that the Saints have, is going to scare a few people away, going to keep Ingram's ownership below 10 because they are 11th in the league in passing yards allowed and have some good performances this year against running backs. But don't be scared away by that. The 2 best running backs that the Bears have faced all year, Jerick McKinnon and Le'Veon Bell, have run all over the Bears. So I expect Mark Ingram to do the same, especially in a game that the Saints really should dominate and control the tempo. So he'll get enough volume to be valuable, and even at that $7,200 price point, I really think he's a nice, attractive option on Sunday. All right, top wide receiver pick. This one's a little crazy, probably because it's pretty stupid, but Will Fuller at $6,500 on the road in Seattle. Fuller has, arguably become one of the league's best wide receiver 2s from a fantasy perspective since Deshaun Watson emerged as one of the league's better fantasy quarterbacks. Is averaging 16.8 FanDuel points per game in his last 3, and it's not a coincidence that those are the 3 best games that Deshaun Watson has had too. So obviously a dice roll, but that's kind of the point of a differentiation play. Fuller's numbers are not sustainable. He's had 14 targets and turned them into 5 touchdowns. People are going to notice that, and he's only going to be 4 or 5% owned against Seattle, though. And if he can remain the guy for Deshaun Watson in the red zone for 1 more week, he'll be really valuable in this tournament. Seattle, obviously their reputation as a secondary, as a defensive unit overall, is warranted, but they're allowing the 8th fewest FanDuel points to opposing wide receivers this year, but some of their matchups include the Colts, 49ers, and last week the Giants with 0 wide receivers. So the Texans are going to be the toughest opponent that this team has faced since week 1 when they played the Packers, and I think that Watson and Fuller are really going to benefit from the perception that this team's overmatched. I don't think they're overmatched. I don't think they're going to win, but they'll keep it close enough and keep their volume high enough to really be relevant and valuable in this tournament on Sunday. All right, finally, tight end, a guy I mentioned earlier. Hunter Henry is my top pivot at tight end, $5,500 against the Pats, playing in Foxborough, obviously, with Philip Rivers. But Zach Ertz and Gronkowski have really good matchups this week, too. Gronkowski obviously against those Chargers, and Zach Ertz against the 49ers. But I think they'll get enough love to make Hunter Henry pivot play, but arguably he's the top tight end play on Sunday in this tournament or any. Over 8 FanDuel points in each of the past 5 weeks. Obviously got hot with Phillip Rivers, and the rest of the Chargers team did. People who are calling for Henry to be more involved in the passing game were right, obviously, and they've won 3 straight, 3-4 total now, and they're alive in this playoff race in the AFC. But Henry has scored double-digit fantasy points on FanDuel in 3 of the Chargers' last 5 games. Best part about it all, though, the thing I really like about Henry is the fact that even though he's a mid-range tight end 1 now, which I think he is, he doesn't have to score to be valuable. He's, just 2 touchdowns with those numbers, over 8 FanDuel points in the last 5 games, double digits 3 of the last 5, 2 touchdowns, 21 catches in those 5-game spans. So New England is a team that, we talked about before, they're obviously very generous against opposing passing offenses, and tight end is no exception. They've allowed 5 tight ends to score this year, and I think they've allowed 5 tight ends to be in double digits on FanDuel. So all that makes Henry really appealing. Probably be about 12 or 13% owned. You're not going to be the only guy on him by any means. But at 5,500, if Henry could find the end zone again, he's huge. But as we talked about, he doesn't have to do that to really be an asset in fantasy. So thanks for checking out Week 8 video. Check us out, fantasysmacktalk.com. Read all our stories. Follow us on Twitter, at Fantasy Advice. I should probably know that. We'll get all your roster questions, all your lineup questions, all your trade questions answered by Game Time every Sunday. And we appreciate you checking out the video, and we'll be back next week.